Welcome to Factorio base review. My name is Nilaus. This is a base review of a base that I've been lucky enough to get a review of. And before we dive into this absolutely disgustingly big base, then I just want to briefly talk about this new idea. Well, it's not exactly a new idea, but it's a new idea on my channel that I'd like to do some base reviews. If you have an interesting base that you spend a lot of time on, it has something interesting. It doesn't have to be the biggest in the world. It should just be interesting in some way. Maybe you have some interesting train system, some logistics system, some circuit system. Then I'd like to see it so that I can showcase it here on my channel, and that means we can all get inspired from all the work that's going on in the community. So I am going to start this series off with style, you could say, and this is a base that is created by Gh0stP1rate and Hamiebarmund. It is, as you can see here, it's a 10K base. It's been running 10K science for 10 hours. And this is completely vanilla, not a single mod is installed. That is pretty damn impressive. And the most impressive part about this, because there are a few of those 10K bases around here, floating around, there's no cheating of anything. So which is something you see often, like, oh, okay, well, I didn't have the or created ore patches ad hoc so that it was easy to do, and that's not the case. This is a completely started up from fresh play and just worked here. It's 2,150 hours into this one. So I mean, this one, okay, that's actually interesting how it doesn't really display that it's 2,100 hours. Oh, when was it? It did say that. That one's never working. We'll go back to the 10 hour. I can look at the save game. So you can also see the frame rates and updates not running perfectly here, running at 20 frames per minute. I wonder if that's actually going to get better in 1.1. That's worth trying. So this is played on 1.0, and with a base like this, how do you even get started on just reviewing a base like this? Look at this. This is us scrolling. You can't really see that I'm scrolling. It's just gigantic. So what we're going to do is we're going to break things down. We're going to talk about science. We're going to talk about how circuits are built. We're going to talk about mining and smelting. We're going to talk a lot about the train systems and also how the circuits are being controlled. We're talking a bit about logistics network and also about the power. So those are all the things that are necessary to sort of piece it together to make this awesome thing. So let's start with the science build. This is the science build. The trains are 1060 trains, and there are 2 trains for each. So you can see here, they are also nicely colored. Basically it works like this. Each train comes in, it's transporting 480,000 science. So it doesn't have to come in very often. It has to come in every, yeah, that's I don't know, 50 minutes, something like that. Not very often. And this train still has 458, and right now we saw one of the trains just going out. I think that was the purple train, and the purple train, you can see they're sort of alternating here. This train is almost empty with only 29,000 in, and then you just have down here, of course it's going to look a lot slower because everything is moving slower because of the updates. One of the core principles is that things are happening from trains, and that's really a key part of this. Let's look at the science build, because they are really interesting. Maybe before we do that, we just zoom out and get a full view. This is the max zoom, and you can barely get the entire base on the full zoom level. So obviously solar panels, and I clicked on a random thing. Yeah, so lots of different things. We're going to go into most of the things and what they are and how they are working. Up here we have the science build. They come from science locations. These are science locations, and if we dive in, you can also already see that it's heavily train based, and I think this is an absolutely brilliant way to do it. So the way it works is you have 2 trains. One is currently always unloading, and the other one is going back to get filled up and then going back over here in the gigantic stacker. And let's have a look at that. Not that one. Let's take one of the middle ones. That one. So this is making purple science. Purple science is, as we all know, extremely awful. And the way it's done here is really interesting. So what you see here is that there's only 2 inserters or 2 assemblers for each locomotive or each wagon. That means it's going to fill up extremely slow. But that's kind of the whole point of this one. There are so few trains, but they're so big that they don't really have to go like every hour or so. Let me just oh yeah, of course it's every 48 minutes, because it's 480,000 and it's using 10,000 per minute, so it's every 48 minutes the train has to be filled up. And with these ones, I really wanted to have the max rate calculator. This one is working at 7.3 speed. I'm just gonna do some calculations off to the side so we can get that. This one is producing normally 3, but its productivity is 1.4, so it's producing 4.2 per craft, and each craft is 21 seconds. And then it's now working at speed 4? Yes, let's call it 7.4, and then I have 2 of those, so that means it's producing only 3 per second. And each of these can store 8,000, so 8,000 divided by 3, 266. 44 minutes it takes to fill up this track, which is perfect, right? I mean, this is the whole thing here is designed that this train must be able to leave at least every 48 minutes. And with this setup, this wagon is getting filled up every 44 minutes. I think that's a brilliant way to do it. And then things are sort of broken down into this. So you're basically having trains coming in here, and then it's using belts to get them the last bit of the way. Now it looks like it's going slowly, but the really brilliant thing about this, in my opinion, here is the fact that instead of, when you're building big, instead of going the way of building massive builds that work extremely fast, this one has kind of gone the opposite side and just built gigantic buffers, and therefore you can. Each of these are working pretty slowly, but then you need a lot of it, like a lot of it, 60 of them, times 2 actually, because there's 60 wagons, so you need 120 trains here. And I think there's a command for trains. I don't know if I see it. We could see that. I think there's 1,200 trains that are in this space. So it's a lot of trains. And if we just break it down, oh yeah, I can't see, it looked like I was scrolling down, but I was scrolling up. So the interesting here is that basically it says this one's only making that part, so I can take all of the other stuff that I need and build them at a dedicated location. So for example, this one, and rail load, undo, and then we go over here and look at rail stations. So this is one thing that I probably would try to make different. I'm not saying I can do anything that's as awesome as this base, but keeping these belts full is probably a lot better for update management. But you can see here there are a number of these. Each of these, just look at the disgusting amount of rails. What is this? This is 8 lanes across, right? Yeah, 8 lanes across. 2, 3, 4, 5, 40 lanes, not full, but 40 lanes of rails. And then we have like a dedicated build here. One of the key things as well, some of these are built as this, and this is also one of the very, very interesting things. In order to make a full blue belt, you only need 2, because you're at a mining productivity of 127. I think it's when you get to 150 or something that effect, then you can actually have 2 miners fill up a blue belt. So on the one hand, you think this is going to use a ridiculous amount of resources, but on the other hand, you just look at it and go, like, well, it's not really going to use anything. This is 37 million, but the productivity on these is, where do we have it? Plus 1,260. So it's every mine here is basically times 14, more or less. So these 37 million gets to be a lot more, stretch a lot longer. And stone, yep, that's a lot, but even a small patch like this, it's only 14 million left, but it's barely consuming anything despite the tons and tons of stuff that comes out here. And autosave, maybe we should have disabled autosave, just seems like a good idea. Every 10 minutes I think I have autosave set up. So basically you can see here, this isn't really taking much in, and the steel comes in also up here. Here we have a different type of steel facility, but this goes back into our smelting thing. And let's go back into this one. One of the key things about this as well is that because the trains are so big, they run so rarely. So having a 1060 train cross this path every 48 minutes, it's okay, because that's not going to cause congestion in the network, hopefully. And we can just keep looking at these this science, and every single one is built exactly the same. You have the same setup here. In this case, you have a vast quantities of low density structure coming in. We can always go back and do low density structures load. That one. Is that it? Yeah, there's a low density structure load. Is that the only one? Doesn't seem like much. And it goes up for, oh right, it goes up to the, like at this gigantic build here. So it doesn't seem like much. Maybe not, but it's actually coming out at a pretty decent rate here. So you can see every single build is gigantic. This is, you can also see that since there's an evolution in this base for the 1,000 hours they put into this Gh0stP1rate and Hamiebarmund, that there are different designs. In this case, you can see here there are staggered trains, so they're waiting here. I think this is something that maybe this is an older build or something, or maybe an experiment, but you can see that they don't unload evenly, which is kind of a problem because of the way here. I guess that would become a problem eventually, or could potentially become a problem. And yeah, so that's the science, that's the principle of how the science is built. So two gigantic trains of 1060 running every 48 minutes, dedicated to each science, going into all of this build, and one being unloading and the other one being loading. And the loading takes place by having a dedicated facility with two inserters, two assemblers here, filling up this one. And I think maybe the blue one is different, because blue is the slowest one. Blue is the slowest. It still looks okay, but it puts it into boxes so that even when the train is out and comes back, then it'll fill up quicker. And you can see here, I really, really like this idea. This is such a good idea, to be honest. I never really thought of it. This is why I wanted to do these kind of base tours, that I had never really thought of working it like this. I would always be like, okay, then you did get one train of engines in for one build of blue science. But having many trains feeding one gigantic train is such a great idea. Because these are super easy to manage, and with the new 1.1 they're also super easy to balance, because they will automatically be able to go. You can set these up to limit of 1. You can't do that in this build, but you can. That can be done in 1.1. So the management of these will be so much easier with them going in here. The way it's working is that you have like stackers out here. There's some station called targeting. Chip targeting that goes into the train. So we'll just kind of wait for that. We'll wait a bit with that. But the idea of having dedicated trains means that you can now outsource the production to somewhere else and then build it into, simply scale that up and send it in here. I love that idea. Let's look at some of the circuit builds. So circuits, where do we have those? Well, we'd have them down here, I think, right? That's red circuits. We'll start with green. We always start with green, right? Yes. So here you see something weird. You see, ooh, that's fluttery. What you're seeing here is a lot of cars placed, and this is done because this stretch from this location. So okay, so we have to zoom out and explain what the hell is going on, because it's super weird. So on the one hand, you have a green science train. And the green science train is here. On the other one, alternating, you have both copper and iron in the same train. And that's really weird. But the basic idea is there are no belts. There are no robots for this part, for the build. It's just a matter of inserters and building this. So basically, again, we have the same principle if we look at it from the perspective of the green circuit train. There will be 2 of these inserting into this one. The trains are 410, and this is simply to balance it. Otherwise, you'd have to do long inserters, and that's not great. So here, it's because there has to be an even number in between, and when you just the way it works, it doesn't quite work. So what we have here, the iron comes in, goes in here, the copper goes in there, and then it goes into the car here. I think the one thing you'd want to do is when you place it, you'd put you'll put just a single fuel in here so that it doesn't blink. I would imagine keeping track of all the blinking things is something that causes UPS, but I don't exactly know. Both displaying things and also keeping track of it. So this is a lot of things that are always just throwing warnings. I would just imagine that would be a small thing. One thing that I'm very surprised about is this circuit build. This circuit build is designed to make sure that the train unloads evenly on both sides. The reason why this is done is because otherwise over time there is potentially, now I don't know, and remember this can run for 100 hours, so even just a small imbalance can scale up. Oh, this is perfect. This is perfect. So what this does, you can see here there are some numbers about how much they have, and you can see they're working synchronized. What they're doing is just unloading. They are making sure that both sides will have the same amount, or I mean close to the same amount. And if I was closer, I could show you exactly how it works. I mean, I can do this. You can take this out and build it wherever we're standing. There. See, I can't move in this space. That's simply too far. This one is just divided by -2, and what the input is, let's get that one out. Okay, it's getting the red one in. Right, so the red one on this side. So it basically summarizes everything on this side. And look at the red wire going from here over there. So basically the red one is connecting to all of the belts, or no, all of the boxes, goes in here, gets divided by -2, gets output into here, which basically says that when the let me just check. Divided by -2 here. So this one has to be close, and there must be something else connected. Where is the green ones connected? The green ones are connected. Oh, right. Ah, yeah. Okay. So on the red wire from here, it goes in and takes the half, all the stuff that's in the boxes, divides by 2, -2, puts it in here. Then on top of that, it adds what is on the green on the one side. So basically, these monitor that is this side less than 100 away from what is on the other side, and so was this one. So basically, as long as they're within 100, the content in these boxes and the content of these boxes, as long as they're within 100 of each other, they will keep going. But if they're not, I'm standing on tracks. It's probably not a dangerous track to stand on, but still principles, right? Yeah, so these are just making sure that the content of the boxes to the left and the content of the boxes to the right are within 100 of each other. Makes perfect sense. But it's still, it's a lot of circuits, and it's kind of one of the things that kind of surprised me that you would want this many circuits. I think I would try to shy away from this to limit the number of circuits as well. But then again, I haven't built a base this big. Red circuits. Oh, right. Trains. You also should look at how the trains are working. If you see here, now there's a copper train here, there's an iron train here. How the hell do you get both copper and iron trains? You can see here, this is the iron unload, and this is the copper unload. And there are some interesting mixes here. Basically, this makes this circuit thing. We can go into more details on the circuit part, but I want to just explain the concept of it. The concept of it is that it basically says that if there's, or at the core of it, it will either enable the copper station or the iron station. It will never have both of those enabled. That's super important. That's the very first thing. You can't have both of them enabled at the same time. So you have to make sure that When one is enabled, the other one is not enabled. The second one condition is that you want to monitor how much is in the boxes so that you know if you need to send a copper train or an iron train in, and that's what's coming in on this wire here. On the red side, the green side is monitoring how many stations are open, because that's what's going up here to the routing of the trains inbound. They will be saying, okay, when there's a demand for trains, then send trains in from this side. This is the copper side, right? That's a targeting copper. So basically what happens, I need to send these. So a train comes in, because this one says green ship iron unload is open. Green ship iron unload, this one is also open, but the way it works here, they will sort of fill up from this side. I think there's at least, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so that's one of the things that will happen in this setup. And that will now go back and do another cycle. I was kind of thinking that that could happen. You still have the option of, or still have the issue of the thundering herd. It's a lot less, but it's still an issue. But that's again something that gets fixed in 1.1. So the trains are nicely stacked up here. They're waiting. Ideally, you'd have a lot of trains here. This is now down here for the... What's that plastic train doing? Oh, maybe because it probably just got lost or got stuck here or something else. Oh, there's still plastic trains. Where the hell are you going, my friend? Oh, right. It's... yeah, okay. That's... that is almost impossible not to have these kind of issues. That some of the trains will use this as a roundabout, which isn't really super practical. But the idea here is that you have stackers, and the stackers go in here. So all of this is a copper stacker, all of this is iron stacker, and they wait here, and then based on what stations are open, they will redirect the big trains in, going in here, filling up. It seems to be working. I mean, honestly, it's been working for many hours, running at 10K, so it's certainly working. It might be a bit overbuilt because there are some allocation here, but that is just minor issues and something that's going to be so much easier in 1.1. And down here we have a lot of a lot of the green circuits. Obviously green. That's not working very well with the Sunder overlay. Make it even slower. Here we just have these insane builds. So blue circuits are coming in, and then just all of this is just making... this is just the speed modules. It's not speed modules and rocket control units that go out here. So we have one for rocket control units. One of the things that's also been done is, like, the preference is you'd rather have a long train like this going around, no intersections. Then it merges in here, goes all the way up, around, up here, and going in here, and that's where it's unloaded. So you can see the trains, they are driving an extremely long path, but they do not intersect. The dumbest copper smelter in the history of copper smelters. Let's not look at it, because we want to look at all the awesome things and not all the things that they know that they didn't really like. But every single build is just so awesome. So the circuit controls, logistics network, that's one thing that was super surprising to me. It's one big network. And not only that, it's one big network with 347,000 logistics robots in and 270,000 construction pods. That doesn't seem like the best way to do this to me, but it works, so who am I to argue? But if you look at it, that means when you request things, it's going to take forever and ever to get things delivered. I don't know how new builds are built, because I would imagine if you stamp down another one of these, then you're going to have to wait like hours, I would guess, for it to actually get done. Alternatively, you'd have to sort of fill up a train, go there, unpack it, and build it yourself. I think that's the option I would choose if that was the case. There are actually two networks. One is for solar panel, and that's kind of the other thing. If we just look at power issues here, yeah, let's look at power issues. Not issues. Let's look at the power. Boom. How much power? It's using 131 gigawatts of power, and it comes primarily from nuclear, which is again a big surprise to me. Is that because of nighttime? This is solar. No, majority is solar. It's just because of I was at nighttime at this point. So coincidentally, but you can see the solar power is not actually enough to get start on the rest, to work all the way through the night. So more solar power is needed. Also, the ratio doesn't seem to be quite right. It's missing some solar, or that's actually weird, right? It looks okay actually. 25 to 21, yeah, pretty good. But it surprises me that nuclear is an option in a 10K base. So some of the stuff that I've been saying, like, I mean, I wouldn't want to play with 20 updates, 20 frames per second. I really wouldn't want to play like that. But if you did, then if you don't mind that, then you can use whatever you want. And this is an infinitely scalable nuclear power. Super nice. Super nice. It just keeps going, and you can keep scaling it for a while longer, yeah, as long as the bridge remains here, and and it just goes out here, builds. It's in a base such as this. I think this is the right way to do it, because you get the maximum amount of neighborhood bonus. And does that really matter? Probably not. Everything is scaled up so big, but it has the advantage that you can just stamp down one more, and when you need more power, you just stamp it at the end, and because you have roboports everywhere, it'll just propagate by itself. Really nice. As long as you can see, like, this is really fortunate. Look at the landfill here. It was like an extremely long patch, and then of course a pretty big solar panel that I don't know if it's like always expanding or something, but it's big. The radars have been taken out to, I think that's to limit the updates, but I don't know if that actually makes a big difference. Let's just look at sort of where the whole thing starts on the smelting columns, smelting parts. That's up here. There's some big smelters and miners as well. Sorry, I'm just fluttering about. Let's zoom out. So here we have iron, copper, iron. So each of these direct insertion into trains, and in this case, well, I mean, they're not going to be loading very quickly, these trains. And this one is monitoring and enabling when output. Oh, it's not actually enabling disable, it's outputting some value. 3. Wonder what that 3 is for. So there's some really cool circuits, and I would have to spend a lot more time to go into this, but the idea is you load directly into trains. The trains are 410 trains. It goes up here. I really like this idea, like a very big branch going out, and then having these so far between that you can actually have a train stuck in here. Also, there are roads. Not something that's probably good for updates, but damn, it looks nice to have giant roads here. Even I could probably stay on these roads if I was driving. Also the radars. This is just like a little aesthetic thing that shows that sometimes building this base, you don't have to be efficient all the time or effective all the time. You can also just spend a couple of evenings just doing nice things. Right, so you can see here, this has probably been coming from a location. Oh, it's almost empty, right? Yeah, it's almost empty. And okay, so that's just a variance. Are we down to 36, and the train goes out. Now I just want to see it go out, right? So this is the basic principle for how, and it is out. Come on, there it goes out. That's the basic principle here, is that we have alternating trains, inbound, outbound, and a smelting column here. I really like this setup. I'm going to definitely try that in some of my bases moving forward. It's not going to be the fastest way to fill up one train, but many trains are going to be filled up at the same time. I think one of the things you have to be mindful of is that you don't want to have too much idle at any given point. So you want to make sure that they are all pretty much working. And then basically once you build 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on ad nauseum. Other locations here that are other smelting parts. I'd like to find one of the steel. This is a steel build. I don't know. I think this can be improved, because steel is so slow that you could actually use some red inserters between these. I did some experimentation on my own to do these kind of builds, But in this case, this just merges into lanes, making them full, going all the way over here, linking them together with more builds of steel. Oh, that's a different steel build. So that's one steel build, and that's another steel build. Just basically trying different things, and it goes up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 full steel lanes, going a long way on belts actually, and that's what goes in here too. Low density structures. Let me just show you this oil as well. Oil is also super interesting. Where's the oil? Oil is predominantly over here. And where is the oil? Here. This is, yeah, oil cracking. Of course, maximum number of beacons. That's actually not the one I wanted to show. I wanted to show the plastic build, because that was really surprising to me. Now, this is another part. Like, where the hell is the plastic? We can actually see. That is something for plastic. Oh, okay, so there must be some plastic trains. That one. Then you go to plastic, load, unload. That one. This is where we make plastic. So this is also really interesting. Again, here, this is a shared train, shared station. So coal comes in, gets put into boxes. The plastic comes in, plastic train comes in, gets filled up with the stuff, then using the coal in the boxes to feed here, and then coming all the way over to this part. And this is also super surprising. This is a UPS optimization, right? Why you need probably better to have more of these basic processing than it is to have all of the extra pipes and logic to do the advanced processing, as long as you only need petroleum. So I think I love this idea. Love this idea. And I was just about to say they're all pointing inwards. They're not. So I love this one. And again, if we look at oil, where that's coming from, oil is just coming in by train. Oh, from this little teeny tiny patch here. Teeny tiny patch. Look at that. Every single one has its own. And the throughput here, yeah, well, it fluctuates a lot. But this is the worst part, I would imagine. Just this part. Might be worth just going more coal liquefaction whenever possible. So this is just desperately trying to get as much out of this as possible. Again, the productivity is the saving grace for all of these. There's speed 4 and then productivity plus 1260. So a lot of is being produced for each one of these. You can see it's almost 260 for this one. Most of the time it's, yeah. So it's just pumping oil, lots and lots of oil. Really like that idea. It's all pumping into this weird location that would then be redistributed. I don't know about it. I have it intuitively doesn't feel right, but what do I know, right? So this amazing base, and let me just again big shout out to Gh0stP1rate and Hamiebarmund, who's been working on this. I want to see on the actual time here, load time, 2,142 hours. Yeah, no mods, very important. So yeah, so I don't know what to say. This is such an awesome station. I particularly like the highlights of this one is basically the 1060 trains that only depart every 48 minutes. Brilliant idea. Such a good idea. I never even considered it. I've always been like, okay, then these trains, they have to go specifically fast, and yeah, and that means you have to work on loading the trains fast in order to keep up with science. Instead, you've just stretched it out and just made 60 wagons, and it's brilliant. The giant circuit builds and how they're allocated, it's really lovely. I really love the part that everything is train to train, and that there are really two trains sharing the same unloading and unloading station. It's absolutely brilliant. The circuit controls on controlling inputs and output into these, I'm such a fan of this. And this is exactly what I was hoping for by doing these kind of base tours, is that I get inspired to do something of my own. And the whole idea, in one of my previous Twitch series, I was doing the direct mining into trains, and I loved it. And I could also see how it just got better once mining productivity got up. But this is just another level of doing direct mining or direct production from train to train. And it's very interesting. I started doing some designs along these edges on one of my workshop sessions over on Twitch myself, just to get the sense of how that would work and how we can optimize it in a Factorio workshop session. And maybe there'll be a masterclass for that as well one day. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you sit there and go like, that's an awesome base, I also have something interesting that I want to show, then do share it with me on Discord. And I'd like to do one of these. If I can, I'd like to do it once a week. I also have some of my own bases that I want to showcase, but I'd really love to see some ideas, primarily vanilla, because that's it's just more relatable for most people to see something that is vanilla or very close to vanilla. And yeah, it doesn't have to be the biggest base. It just has to be something that has an interesting logics to it. That would be super awesome. So big thanks to Gh0stP1rate and Hamiebarmund for allowing me to showcase their awesome work. And I can only hope that I do it justice. There are so many things in this one. I have so many notes about it, but I mean, we're already running long, so I don't want to go even longer on going into more minute details about the intricacies of all of the circuits, how they're being controlled back and forth. But it just works, and the main thing here, 10k science for 10 hours. I think that's very, very impressive to be able to achieve it, and it doesn't seem unstable at all. There was a glitch here, but I would imagine that's some kind of rework or something, power or something, but that even then, it still has way over capacity. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comment section below if you want some more details, some other things, if you have some ideas for what else, other things we could do Factorio related. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, take care and stay effective.